looking at good reading, and there are 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 strong. So characteristics and attributes of good reading, which is quite uncommon. Let's be clear. Many of us read, very few of us are good readers. And I'm very sure I myself, I am not a good reader. I read reasonably well, but I know there are many better readers than me. Okay. So now we will shift to good writing, which is also like the other side of the coin of good reading. So what do we mean by good writing? Good reading or good writing? More difficult than good reading, perhaps the most difficult of the three. Writing is very, very different, very difficult. That's one reason why we are not popular yet, because nobody likes our writing. One reason nobody likes our writing is we don't seem to communicate things well. We don't seem to impress them with our writing. We don't seem to motivate our readers to seek more from us and others. And good writing is very challenging. But like good reading, good writing. Good writing, like good reading, is eventually a cultivated art. So one need not be born writers, but we can eventually get to write very well. It's hard work, much harder than good reading, but doable. So you may have to put 5 times or 10 times more effort to achieve the same levels of reading capability in writing, which means writing is almost 10 times more difficult than reading, but doable. As I said, it is again a very refined, cultivated art. Good reading is a cultivated art, but good writing is a very difficult, cultivated art. Okay? There are many types of writing. Creative writing, business writing, poetry, narratives, novel, autobiography, dramas and play, writing for children, news and blogs, scientific and research writing. This more or less sums up the broad spectrum of types of writing. Each of us will find it very difficult to be in more than one. I think most of us are spending time on scientific and research writing, being teachers. Some of us on news and blogs. Maybe some have already gone into novel writing, narratives, yes, very rarely poetry. We don't do much of business writing ourselves unless somebody is there in the audience. And almost none of us are very creative with our writing. But these are things that are happening. Okay. So what do we mean by good writing? Okay. Good writing is well organized and flows well with a consistent style or voice from beginning to end. This is very important. Like good speakers. Okay. We haven't touched that because we have only looked at reading, writing, and understanding. good speakers are another entity related to, but not necessarily as much depth as this. For example, one of the best speaker I have listened to is Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Even though he spoke in Hindi, which I understand reasonably well, but not very well, excellent speaker. I mean, he could convince even a dead person to wake up and start walking. So, exceedingly good speaker, but definitely not a good writer. Uh, Maybe he understood, we don't know. I don't know how much good reader he was, but he definitely was a good speaker. And there are people like that. Apparently in Tamil Nadu, Annadore was a very good speaker. We need to look at speakers more from oration point of view rather than the depth of reading, writing, or understanding. That's why when we are looking at the academic part, we don't look at good speaker or good oration, but we focus on good reading, writing, and understanding. Okay. Good writing is also free from mistakes and error in spelling, punctuation, and grammar. This is uh, you can get away with poor grammar even while speaking, which is happening thanks to that very bad SMS language that is coming in through mobile and WhatsApp. It is filled with bad punctuation, terrible grammar, and spellings are not a mistake. There are no spellings. Okay, everything is shortcut. Okay, but the message goes around. Okay, so that's different from good writing. It's well organized, flows well, consistent style from beginning to end. So it's a very complete, clear, consistent document of study. What is right? This is not an easy question to answer. Many very different kinds of writing are considered good and for many different reasons. There is no formula or program for writing well. However, there are certain qualities that most examples of good writing share. The following is a brief description. We will look at that. 5 qualities of good writing. Okay. First thing, there is focus. So when you are reading a good writing, even if your mind doesn't have focus, that writing will bring focus in you. Okay. So an essay should have a single clear central idea. Each paragraph should have a clear main point or topic sentence. Then gradual development. Each paragraph should support or expand the central idea. Then unity. Every paragraph in an essay should be related to the main idea. Each paragraph should stick to its main point. Coherence. An essay or paper should be organized logically, flow smoothly, and stick together. In other words, everything in the writing should make sense to the reader. And correctness. Paper should be written in generally correct standard English with complete sentences and be relatively error free, which is not necessarily English. You can do it in any language. Correctness in any language is equal. So, a good writing is a journey, not a destination. It's an amazing thing. It's like good reading. Good reading is a comma, not a full stop. Similarly, good writing is a journey, not a destination, which means you really don't end. You write well, you feel there is much more to write, you can eventually write. That's exactly how many people keep writing subsequently, books after books, articles after article, etc. As good writing or good reading, there is no single definition. Improving your writing is a lifelong process. Self-discovery and editing, lots of editing. In fact, our journal articles itself, which is not a literary part of writing, we maybe edit it 10 times, and sometimes we edit it so badly that the 10th version of that edited article actually looks like the first version that we did, which means when we wrote it the first time, that was far better than subsequent editions. So all this happens. Okay. Yeah. One of the qualities of good writer is the ability and the humility. This is very important to edit their own work, meaning they must be able to accept the fact that They could have made mistakes. They do make mistakes, which needs to and can be corrected by self, which means whatever we write the first time is not necessarily the best way to write. We may write the first time convenient to us, but definitely we may not have kept the reader in mind. We may have kept ourselves in mind, which case whatever we write for ourselves is okay. Okay. Your writing may be pretty good on the first draft, but knowing it can always improve. Okay. We are all on a journey to find the perfect sentence construction, perfect word, and the perfect tone for things we write. And I don't believe we will ever get there, which means it is a goal that we aspire for, and we try to reach as close as possible to that. So the journey of honing your writing style, because you will never hit a point where it's perfect. The point just doesn't exist. Means there is no perfect writing. There is good writing. Okay. Practice writing and ask for feedback. Very important. That's why we always need good colleagues. Good colleagues need not be our friends. Good colleagues are people who can even scold us if necessary. We don't have to salam them. Good colleagues are people who will appreciate what is good in us and point out mistakes and flaws and limitations in us, which is there with everybody else. So, feedback, particularly negative feedback, critical feedback, is very necessary. Today, thanks to online publishing and easy DTP work, 99% of what is published in print finally is filled with errors, wrong ideas, poor grammar, poor structure, and quite a lot of garbage. That is what is happening, because today getting somebody to check our mistakes and give us the correct feedback to correct is not there. Either they are not there, which is most common, or they don't have time, which is also quite true these days. This is very unfortunate. Okay. Because even, in fact, one of the worst Kannada in the world is in Karnataka. That is because we are not paying attention to language even from primary school. Forget about mathematics, it's even worse. High school students don't know how to multiply numbers even now, large majority of them. Same thing is happening with languages. In fact, for many years, one of the best Kannada department in India was not anywhere in Karnataka, but what is in Bombay University, which finally they made sure that it will not be there. So this is really what is happening everywhere. We are in our hurry and anxiety to be IT specialists. Today, SMS has become the language. Mobile language you find even in answer scripts. It's exceedingly bad. We are killing language everywhere, not just English alone, English also, but Kannada too, okay? Or every vernacular, okay? The best advice I can give to new writers is to start writing. If you are not practicing the writing you would like to master regularly, completing your ultimate task will be much more difficult. That's true whether you are writing an essay, an email, a blog spot, Instagram caption, or even a 400-page novel. Some writing experts recommend writing every day, and this has been useful. But even if you don't have time to write your daily 500 words or 15 minutes, getting a regular cadence or writing started is a key to develop. Okay. One element that is left out, regularly asking for feedback on your writing. If you are writing every day but not improving, you might be journaling, not developing a skill. Okay. So if you aspire to be a specific generic type of writing, others likely enjoy it as well. These are the people you want to give your honest, unfiltered feedback on your work. That's very important. Okay. More details. Many of us cannot write very general to everybody. We write to specific reader, particularly the style of literature, the styles of writing, whether it is a journal article, whether it is a newspaper column, whatever it is. Okay. Even when you are writing, so I'm imagining a specific reader. He's about 55 years old and has had a long career in finance and wants to work on his writing skills. So he can start a memoir. I have nicknamed Brian. He probably has a dog. So these are kind of thing. Okay. You must imagine what kind of readers you want to address. Okay. That's the first thing. Practice for that. Get feedback from such readers about your writing and improve. That's called honing your writing skill. At least you can address one specific type of readers. Making everybody understand and appreciate is very challenging. Okay. How to write well or good writing? Plan your writing. Like everything, you need to plan. Okay. That flow, continuous flow, which makes it things well. Yeah, there are definitely writers like Shakespeare and others who probably do that. But we are not those. We are very ordinary people trying to write well or good. Okay. Do your research and check your facts. This is another things. Okay. Many times we seem to mix up facts with information. All information is not facts. All information is not knowledge. But when you need to write, you need to write based on facts. Okay. More writing is not better writing. Quantity is not quality. In fact, the difficulty of writing poetry is the following. Poetry writes very little, but tries to convey a lot, which is opposite of prose. Prose can write many pages and finally convey very little. But challenge is in poetry where you write very less but convey more. And that's really what it is. Okay. What is good writing? You know it when you see it. Very difficult to describe. It's like the famous, not the present one, but the earlier famous MTR dosa. Whatever you describe, no use. Only when you go taste it there physically, you will know what it is. So good writing is like that. When you see it, when you see it and read it. It isn't that hard to tell whether the piece of writing is good or bad. You just have to read it. You have to read and experience good writing. Okay. So what are the things that actually make good writing? Working on ideas that are interesting and important. That's what newspapers do. Newspapers try to highlight what is important, at least temporarily. It is important for today. We don't know what it is tomorrow. Okay. Interesting. Then organizing that is logical and effective, which means you are taking the reader of your writing on a journey. The third is voice that is individual and appropriate. When somebody reads your writing, does the reader feel that you are talking to him or her? Okay. So you need to speak or write in a voice that appeals or resonates to. So that's one reason why typically transactional correspondence, they say don't use bombastic words, don't use very poetic language, be simple and straight. Okay, as I say, kiss, keep it simple and straight. That's really what the mantra of basic good writing. Scholarly writing is different, artistic writing is different, creative writing is different. Okay, word choice that is specific and memorable. Right words to say just the right things. Sentence fluency that is smooth and expressive. You can write it very simple, that flows well, but it may not be expressive. This I just frequently recollect that. I'll come to that. Others is conventions that are correct and communicative. For example, sentence structure, paragraphs, exclamation mark, when to use comma, when to put a full stop. All this matters a lot. Okay, these are the conventions. And more importantly, sentence fluency that is smooth and expressive. Here, one of the most beautiful sentences I've come across is somebody wants to describe uh, how white is white. And a beautiful expression that uh, describes whiteness as moonlight on snow. It's very difficult to tell that till you experience it. I have trekked a lot, in particular in the Himalayas, and it so happened at a very high altitude, it was a full moon day. And then the whole thing was snow, and we had a full moon striking the snow. That whiteness, moonlight on snow, is undescribable. It's so beautiful. Far better than saying it is white of white, swan white, all that is expression. But moonlight on snow, this is a song from Bob Dylan, who became a Nobel laureate in English literature. So that's really what it is. Exceedingly simple sentence, moonlight on snow. More or less tells the finest way to describe whiteness, right? Yeah. So that's really what it is. So, what are basic conclusions for good writing? Follow the rules of basic writing. It must be easy to read and it must attract the reader. It must meet the reader's expectations. So you can see that. I mean, it's like all the famous recent literary figures like J.K. Rowling and all that. They have been able to turn out one after another books, and which simply means the reader's expectation is met, like Enid Blyton and others which has gone on. Okay, it is clear and concise. It is efficient and effective. So it must be clear, concise, efficient, and effective. It must meet the reader's expectation. There must be an attractive element for the reader. It must be easy to read, and it must have most of the rules of writing. Creative writing means breaking the rules. Bad writing is also breaking the rules. Okay. So we will move on to good understanding and then summarize all these things. Okay. So what do we mean by good understanding? Really difficult aspect, but always has the advantage of anonymity and disconnect with both the author and the writer. his or her context of the content, and more significantly, many times alien with the subject matter. That is no direct or even second-hand experience, right? It is easy to appreciate if we are not involved. That is why many of us read crime stories because they talk about murder, tragedies, war, and all that, and we are sitting comfortably in the room. Please unmute. Please mute, all of you. It's easy to appreciate if we are not involved. This is what it is. We don't understand war, murder, or tragedies, but it's easy to read that. And we feel we have understood it, but we really have not understood it because we are not involved in this. Very difficult to understand tragedy unless we meet it ourselves. Somebody in our neighborhood has died. We go, we sympathize, we put a hand on their shoulder and say, don't worry, things you can face it, be brave, all that. That's all we can say. We have not experienced it, only when it happens to us. So, this is where it is very difficult to understand unless we are part of the book, part of the topic, part of the understanding. And many times, the reader, that is we, the reader, we are no way connected with the author, or we are disconnected with his or her writing. How many of us have actually met the author of the book whose books we read? Very few. And when we meet, it is more a hero worship rather than actually sitting and debating because they have no time for that. You have no opportunity for that, nor you seek an opportunity for that. It's some sense of disconnect. Because we are already disconnected with the writer, we really don't understand very well. What we get is a gist of it, a glimpse of it, a superficial understanding. We really don't feel. We really don't feel. Okay. And it's always easy to appreciate if we are not involved in it. Very easy. Oh, you're doing well. Full of errors. You're doing well because that means there is no more interaction with you. Good understanding means the ability to comprehend or knowing the meaning of something. Comprehension is very difficult. Okay? Implying that good understanding can be related to any subject, situation, etc., which is probably more difficult than reading and writing, but appears more easier than the two because you are disconnected. You have not written it. You are expected to read. You have varying degree of understanding. Nobody can check how well you have understood. You can always feel satisfied that I have understood it. This is what happens typically even at exam level. When you say students have understood the subject that you taught and they are prepared to face the exam, do they really have they really understood it well enough to face any exam in that subject? No. Very superficial understanding. Even that they don't pass. Many of them don't pass even in that, which means it is less than superficial. It is just for the sake of consumption that they have read. They have not necessarily understood it well. And let me also tell you, reading for an exam, you don't understand well. You are so worried about passing an exam, which also is true for a PhD thesis. In fact, just when I was about to submit the PhD thesis, I felt I can do better work. I may have to actually spend time and write it better. But it was already 5.5 years, scholarship was over, all that. So I said, okay, we do something, we work it out, we print it, submit it, get our degree label, and from patient, you become a doctor and get out. This is really what happens. In fact, that's why most of our thesis is not worth reading again, even by ourselves. We could have done a better job. We understand that. Okay. There are one way to understand understanding is finding out synonyms of understanding. It's a mental grasp, comprehension. Okay. The power of comprehending, especially the capacity to apprehend general relations of particulars, the power to make experience intelligible by applying concepts and categories, a mutual agreement not formally entered into, but in some degree binding on each other, which is the writer and the reader. If you understand well, it means you have understood the writer. I may never have met many of the writers, but I understand that person without ever meeting him or even seeing him physically in my life. It is a friendly or harmonious relationship. For example, some of the books I have read and I have liked it, I have reread it, I have understood it reasonably well. I know if the writer comes or I come in front of him or we meet each other, I, I don't have to wait to be friendly with him. I already understood him. So I can talk to him as though I know him for 10 years. This is what is understanding the reader, which is also the reverse. How the author has written well to make people understand. And if the author is good enough, he or she can make many people understand. Okay. An agreement of opinion or feeling, which is basically adjustment of difference. We are different. We are different from the author or the person who has written the article. We have differences, but when I say I have understood that article or that book or that novel or that writing, it means my differences with him or her, I have narrowed down. It's not necessary that I have complete synergy with the writer, but the differences are very small. I have adjusted the differences so I can relate to the writer. Good understanding is also an adjective. Endowed with understanding is the idea of tolerant, sympathetic, okay? Meaning you may not like the writer's viewpoint. You have to tolerate the writer for his or her departure from your expectations. You are sympathetic with his or her viewpoint so that you will be able to refine yourself. This is very important. That's why good writing has influenced dramatic changes in society. Because you, for the first time, without a human being in your presence, you are allowing somebody a chance to modify your behavior, your attitude, your perception, your understanding of the world, your understanding of yourself. It's almost like remote control, right? You are handing over the remote control of you to a good writer. It also is making you intelligent, making you better knowing. These are all other aspects of understanding. And this is more or less a summary of what is good understanding. It can be clear understanding, which is mostly technical work, complete understanding, which is more exhaustive, good understanding, capturing the perception, mutual understanding between two readers or between the author and the reader, proper understanding, which is mostly narratives and events. And lastly, scientific understanding, which is just understanding the principles, not necessarily the literature part of it. Scientific documents and writing need not be language exciting. So you may not improve your language by reading scientific work, but you will definitely improve your understanding of the scientific principles, right? Converse of these are far more clear. We don't know what is clear understanding, but we definitely know what is unclear understanding. We don't know what is complete understanding, but we know what is incomplete understanding. So the converse of these is far more clear. It means one or more of the above, right? Task as understanding. Consider a hypothetical scenario of a man throwing a rock through the window of a parked car. The task is, can you describe in some details why this happened? So just imagine for yourself. Somebody has thrown a rock through the window of the car which is parked. What is your task? Can you describe in some details why this happened? Many answers. Maybe the car was parked wrongly. That's one. Maybe this fellow is a miscreant who has no other business other than this. Or multiple ways to think. Subtle but vital difference. The difference between thinking critically and thinking in the lower primate way is roughly analogous to the difference between information and understanding. Information is knowing. Understanding is knowing what to do with what you know, particularly in the absence of complete information. A man throwing a rock through a car window is information. Having the sense to pass no judgment and take no action until the why is revealed is recognizing. In other words, that not all rocks thrown through the car windows are the same is understanding. So, our problem of understanding is we equate information with understanding. This is very serious problem with all of us. Just because we know the information, we think we have understood the context and the scenario with it. No. In fact, most of the time we are wrong. Most of the time we are wrong. That's why if you look at yourself, I think more number of times you say sorry in life rather than doing it correctly. We are sorry most of the time because we mistake information with understanding or information with knowledge. What we see and hear and get is mostly information with which it may not even be complete. So it is a patient game to understand, looking at all possibilities. Information is easy, understanding is hard. The life of a human being can be seen as a series of decisions. Information makes decisions easier, and indeed, when complete information is available, our decisions are effectively made for us. It's like this. Give a man a fish and you can feed him for a day, goes the old magazine. Teach him to fish and he eats for a lifetime. Difference between what and why and how. The what is give a man a fish. How and why is did you give it or did he catch it by himself? That's the difference between information and understanding. In fact, when we read books, when we read articles, when we even listen to others among or even listening, I wish we had this topic of what is good listening. Very rare. Even though we have 2 ears, only one mouth, we use that one mouth 100 times more than 2 ears. Biology gave us 2 ears so that we listen more and talk less. Listening is more challenging than even good reading and writing. Very few are good listeners. Okay? We'll come to that. Okay? Gap between communication, written or oral, and understanding. Here are few reasons why understanding is everything. Empathy, active listening, conflict resolution, Understanding is crucial for resolving conflicts, which means you have two different viewpoints when you read something, and that itself is a conflict. You have to resolve that so that you become very clear about the understanding. Okay. Building trust. Understanding forms the basis of trust in relationship. See, if you don't trust the author, you are not going to understand well. Because whatever he says, you start suspecting. This is like what we experience as teachers when we get students to submit assignments and homework. We know very well he or she has copied. Today, worse, everybody generates through ChatGPT because we don't trust. Why we don't trust? They have also not made effort to trust. Trust is mutual. Between a teacher and student, trust is mutual. Okay. Effective leaders who understand their team members on a personal level, can better motivate, inspire, and guide them towards success. This is it. Because in a team, different people have different background, different perception, different attitude, different aptitude, different aspirations. They all speak differently about a given issue. So a good team member is somebody who actually understands everybody, hears them, accommodates their viewpoint, and then brings about a consensus about the decision. Very few are like that. That's the reason why many things in India, many institutions in India don't work well. They don't work well because there are serious problems of leadership. The best example is all the universities in India. It is pathetic. The absolute junk. That is because we have for long years successive, absolutely poor leadership both in the department and at the vice chancellor's level, right? Are there exceptions? Yes. One of the best leaders was Professor Satish Dhawan, who was Indian Institute of Science director and simultaneously ISRO chairman. He was working alternate days in Indian Institute of Science and ISRO. He was taking ₹1 salary from ISRO because he was taking full salary from Indian Institute of Science. And he said he will not resign from Indian Institute of Science only on the condition that alternate days he is allowed to work in ISRO. He will take charge of chairman of ISRO. Fantastic. Very simple. For every discussion and meeting, all the participants have to come prepared. And everybody should participate. Everybody should give their opinion. And many times, somebody would give an opinion which he had in mind, and he would never say, I have thought like this. He would say, that's a good idea. That opinion can be considered. What is viewpoint of others about his opinion? And he would gladly give the credit to him. And the other rule was, after all the opinions are given, he would share his opinion. And no meeting will complete without an opinion being accepted by all. There is nothing like we'll postpone to the next meeting. Amazing. Very simple. He would listen to everybody. He will expect everybody to be prepared on that to talk. Everybody will participate. And at the end, they will take a common decision. And immediately action follows. I mean, it's very simple. The other man who was doing it was Korean, who was running Amul. That's one reason Amul did very well. This is all that is needed. You don't need great people to run the country. You want simple, honest people who can relate to everybody and take everybody with them. That's all that is needed. Okay? Conclusion, while communication is an indispensable tool in our daily lives, understanding is the compass that guides our interactions towards more meaningful and enriching connections. It is understanding that transforms word into genuine expressions of empathy and compassion. In a world that often values speaking over listening and reacting over understanding, let us remember that true wisdom lies in recognizing that while communication is good, understanding is everything. That is why Buddha is a very good teacher, because his emphasis was not on communication. Silence gives more information than words. When you are silent, you need to understand yourself, because in silence, there is nobody to communicate with you. You are the only one communicating with yourself. That's why all meditative techniques emphasize on silence. Very important. If we understand ourselves well, we have understood others well. Most of the problem with our leaders and everywhere is most of them are people who don't know what they are. They talk a lot, claim a lot, do so many things without any clarity. Understanding also is one of the most difficult things. Let's look at examples of good reading, which also means not necessarily good writing. Good reading because you enjoy this. And for example, R.K. Narayan and R.K. Lakshman, just pictorially, just see, just one day before election. This is a common man. Immediately after election, what the people do. And it's been going on for 70 years. Even now they do it. The MLA will come with folded hands to you before voting. And after that, he will even put his slipper on you and walk out. It's going on. This conveys more information than one 400-page book. That's the power of effective communication. Okay. And very interesting. You see, sarcasm, but more or less captures everything. I am grateful to the politician. They have not taken care of the country, but they have taken care of me very well, he says, R.K. Lakshman, because every day they give nice masala for him to create a cartoon strip. Okay. And this is the famous Malgudi, but I am still willing to believe that this Malgudi railway station and this idea of him came because the old Chamrajpuram railway station in Mysore looked like this. And anyways, R.K. Lakshman and Narayan were living in Mysore in their formative years. Okay. And I had met him in his house because his R.K. Narayan's grandson was my classmate. And we used to go to his house. Very nice person. Okay. And one of my favorites, which is very informative, very entertaining, and very good graphics, is this Asterix cartoon series, which also is almost 50% historically true. Okay. And you need to understand, read this a dozen times to get all of, which means you read it once, second time you read, you enjoy more. Third time you read, you enjoy even more. And you can't leave out anything. Even on the borders and in the middle, somewhere in the corner, they would have put a small sketch which gives you much more information than what you read in the page. So it's a fantastic reading. Okay. And this is my personal opinion. This is my personal idea of good reading. I am sure your personal idea of good reading may be exactly opposite of all this, and it is valid. Yeah. That's why I said this reading is a very subjective choice. Okay. Now, examples of difficulty in understanding, because it has multiple levels, context, and situation. Not surprising, it's about war. This is the famous Tolstoy's War and Peace. And this is the book which made Mahatma Gandhi what he was. Without this book, without reading this book and understanding Tolstoy a little, Mahatma Gandhi would have been as ordinary as anybody else. This is the impact of this writing. And this has impacted so many people. And one of the best, and mind you, this is a translation. His original writing was in Russian, but this is the English translation, which itself was very impactful. The same is the story of Mahabharata. which happens every day in everybody's life. That's why Mahabharata is not a religious text. It's a socio-psychological text because every day, everywhere in the world, as long as there are humans, Mahabharata keeps happening. You take the Maharashtra election now, okay? Two cousins are fighting each other. Raj Thackeray and Uddhav Thackeray. They are fighting each other. There are other people who are grouping with them and fighting each other. Sharad Pawar is fighting with his nephew Ajit Pawar, right? So Mahabharata happens every day. That's why it has multiple levels of understanding. Different contexts and situations also can be mapped into it. That's why it's a very powerful narration and writing, because everybody can relate to it in their own condition and in their own context. I'm sure there is some very entry level Mahabharata war going on in most of your departments. I'm not surprised. Okay. And that's very difficult to understand because you can understand it at multiple levels. Hundreds of contexts and thousands of situations you can relate to. And if you can understand at multiple levels, different context and situation, that's why it makes this a great piece of writing. One of the best examples of good writing, right? There are many, but one in recent times that I have come across is this book called Sapiens. It's a brief history of humankind, meaning it tells you what we as humans were, what we are now, and why. And this book has sold 24 million copies since the last 10 years. It was on the New York best-selling list for 6 years continuous. It is already translated to 65 different languages worldwide. And it's a brief history about all of us, our ancestors and the rest. It tells us why and how we came to be what we are now. And all it requires is people with average level of English and a curiosity to know about ourselves. He is not a great writer, right? But he has done very good writing. He's, of course, a scholar. He's an archaeologist come anthropologist. And one of the great capacity for him to write like this is because he's based in Israel. He did his PhD in Oxford or Cambridge. But for the last 20 years, he spends 2 months a year in India, in Igatpuri, doing meditation. He's that Goenka's Vipassana meditation, this thing. And it's one of the reasons that he has developed that capacity to write like this so well for the first time. This is his first book in life. He has written few more books after that. All are bad, let me tell you. This is an amazing, exceptional book. Please read, because it simply tells what we are as humans, why we are like this, what has happened to our ancestors, and what has shaped us to be what we are today, so that at least now we will know why we are like this. Hopefully we can use that to be better than otherwise. Okay. And then there's another interesting book I came across very recently. In fact, this book is so absorbing. I just sat down for 3.5, 4 days continuously and finished it. The other book, which is very recent, just a few months back, is this. This is one of the latest addition to very good writing. To appreciate this, you need to read this attentively. Appreciate this good writing. Understand this well so that you can understand India better and yourself. What do we mean? This is what do we mean by humans? This is what do we mean by Indians? You will also understand the rest of the world better. Why the Chinese act like monkeys? Why America is violent? Why the Middle East is always in turmoil? All this you will understand. You will get an exceedingly good view of yourself, our country, and the world view. And excellent writing, no doubt, and very well researched. Okay, these are not novels. Okay, these are not novels. In fact, I know this book has already been used as classroom material in many courses all over the world. See how ancient India transformed the world. Very good. In fact, very early he writes clearly saying the Silk Road idea of China is all fake. There was never any Silk Road. Silk Road was a German in late 19th century or early 20th century. He called it the Silk Road because he was planning a direct railway line from Germany to China. He called it the Silk Road. There was no Silk Road. If there was any road, there was a golden road built with India as the center. And that's this book. Amazing book. In fact, it doesn't matter what you read and other things, but it will be very useful for you and your students and others, even your family members. If you can read this book and this book, that's enough. You don't need to read any other books for the next 10 years. These two books are enough for the rest of your life. Okay. Thank you. So please read a lot and read well. Write little, because voluminous writing is not effective. We have not reached the stage of Tolstoy to write 1,500 pages, which is very effective, or like Mahabharata in 18 volumes. But definitely write little, which is useful and effective. And if you can pick up that cultivated art, you can continue. Try to understand at depth and in subtlety, both, not superficial. Understanding at depth, and most good understanding is very subtle. It's not obvious. Try to understand the grand world wonders of world's writing. One lifetime is not enough to read a sample of all that is good. So much of good writing. Please mute. Inculcate these in your students also. At least some of them should be good readers.